Hello and welcome back to the show. We're here today with Sheldon Wolf. He is the president of Canada Credit Fix and is one of Canada's top forensic credit experts. He is a specialist and an educator to Canadians on topics such as credit restoration, credit score modification, debt settlement, and identity theft protection. Well, Sheldon brings to the table over 25 years of credit experience and currently sits on the board of directors for the Credit Institute of Canada. Once again, Sheldon, great to have you on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We've had you on the show many times discussing credit repair, debt settlement, identity theft, and various other topics. Today, I want to hone in on the credit report. You ready for some hard questions here?
Bring it on.
Well, firstly, where do people get their credit report, and how much does a credit report actually cost?
Well, Equifax is one of the primary credit reporting agencies, and then there's TransUnion. So there's two in Canada. A lot of people think there's, well, I'll say those are the two main. There's other companies that do credit reporting, but as far as consumer credit and the banks and who uses what, those are the two main, unlike the States where there's even more. A lot of them go on about 3 credit reports and whatnot. The main thing is you can get them online, or you can send away and get them by mail. And the cost of them, there's different programs they have. They have a one with a credit score and then one without, and they're going to range, I'm thinking, somewhere between $14 and $20-something. What you need to know if you're like a lot of the customers that we have, well, they have credit problems and they may not have a credit card. You need a credit card. If you can't get your credit report online, please call us. We'll help you get it. There's no fee when we get it for you. We can help you get a free credit report.
Well, that sounds pretty straightforward. But what is the difference between the Equifax credit report and TransUnion?
It's all about the data they get. Now, they're very similar, very, very similar. For me, I can see big differences, but I understand how the data furnishers work, and I understand who's receiving what. I also understand the algorithms and how their scores are calculated. As far as the general public, what they need to know is some banks and some mortgage companies only use Equifax, and much like some credit card companies, when you're applying for a credit card, may only use TransUnion. So depending on what you're applying for, you kind of want to know what's on both of them. And when we do credit repair for people, I'm interested in on what's happening on both your credit reports, because I like to make sure that they're both accurate. It's the law. Your credit report has to be accurate, and unfortunately, it's pretty much up to you to make sure of that. So,
why is it important that Canadians check both credit reports?
Well, each credit report, although most of the information is going to be similar, you want to make sure, depending on what it is that you're applying for, you have to know what the bank is going to see. You need to know what the credit card company is going to see, what the auto dealership is going to see. It's like your DNA. It tells the lender how you pay your bills, how often you move, where you're working. It tells you everything. It's your DNA. So it's very important that if it's going to send a message out to whoever you're applying, that it should be accurate.
So let's talk about credit score myths. I've heard you say that not all credit scores are the same. What do you mean by that?
Well, almost always, if you pull your credit report from Equifax or you pull your credit score from TransUnion, you're going to find that your credit score is completely different. And then you're going to get to the bank and you're going to find that your score is different again. And then essentially, it's like a moving target. So a lot of people think that it's going to stay the same, and they could bank on it being exactly like it is when they pulled it themselves off the Equifax site. Not going to be the case, and rarely is it going to be the case. It's a moving target, always changing.
And I know that Canada Credit Fix are also experts in forensic credit auditing and deal with many files that involve identity theft and credit fraud. What are some telltale signs that people should look out for?
Well, we tell people, monitor your credit. If you don't know and understand the coding and you don't understand all the essence of what's on your credit report, then get a professional to do it. I recommend my company because we specialize in auditing of credit reports, and we also do a lot of forensic credit restoration. So I would say there's very few companies that have the qualifications we do. But if you're going to become a victim of identity theft, you want to have an expert looking at your credit on a monthly basis. It's very, very affordable and highly recommended. But unless you understand the coding, when you see a credit report, you see a piece of paper. When I see your credit reporting, I see coding is what I see. Telltale signs are this. Name spelt wrong, addresses that you've never lived at, postal codes wrong. All this data that is contained in your credit report says to me that somebody may have had some of your information, but not all of your information. Things like that. So when I look at credit report, it's completely on a different way than most consumers would look at their credit report.
Well, in other interviews, I've heard you say that don't blame Equifax, don't blame TransUnion. What does all that mean?
Well, everybody's first response, and I can't even tell you, probably 50 times a day, literally, we get people calling our office looking for credit repair, and the first thing they say is, Equifax screwed up on my credit report. TransUnion screwed up on my credit report. The credit bureau screwed up on my credit report. Nobody screwed up on your credit report. They get their information from data furnishers. So a lot of times they just got off the phone after yelling at some poor guy at Equifax, and the problem actually has nothing to do with them in many, many cases. Not to say that they're flawless, but in many cases it's the person who supplied them the data. So you're kind of yelling at the messenger, and that doesn't necessarily fix the problem. In fact, if anything, it slows down the problem, where we could figure out who exactly is to blame, who messed up, dispute it, and get it removed, and eliminate many, many months of aggravation for a consumer.
Well, Sheldon, what recommendations do you have for someone who has errors on their credit report or a low credit score? Should they just call Equifax or TransUnion?
Equifax is not necessarily in the credit repair business. They're in the credit reporting business. The more you do to try and help yourself, the more you could be actually hurting yourself. Almost everything you're going to have communications with, whether it be to a collector, credit companies, almost always they record your calls, and makes it tougher for us to actually do what has to be done. Our service, just become a member, and essentially you're not paying each time we're doing something on your credit. You're just a member. So a lot of times it's not going to cost you anything anyway to have us do it. But it's one of those things where we talk to customers all the time, and they've actually made their credit worse, or they tried to settle their own debts, and now the DLA codes are all changed, and something that would have fallen off in 6 months is now going to be back on for 6 years because of a bad settlement, or simply because they were lied to by a collector. So, I mean, give us a call. Let us take a look at it. There's no charge for talking to an expert, and then you can make your decision from there on how you want us to proceed, or maybe we can even give you the advice on what you should do to fix it yourself.
So, Sheldon, what is coding, algorithms, and what is synchronization? I've heard you mention the importance of those factors before, but can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Every ingredient on your credit report is done in codes, and the consumer-friendly version you're seeing is going to be a little different than what the banks are going to see. But each bank and each credit company sets up their own algorithms to meet with the Equifax or TransUnion ones, and they build their own risk models. And each bank has their own limits to what risk they'll take on, and everything converts to codes. So, for example, when you're ticking off boxes and you're at a bank, and it asks you if you have investments, if your answer is yes, you get this many points. If your answer is no, you get that many points. If you're a long-haul truck driver, you lose points. If you're an engineer, you gain points. That kind of a system. So, but everything on your credit report has its own scores as well. So how you pay your bills, whether they're on time, how many times you've been late, how many times you move, how frequently this is, like I said, it's almost like your credit DNA. So it sends a message, and everything tabulates into a score. And the score is ever changing based on how much money you're spending, how close to the limits you're getting. So many different factors, and always changing, because every day you go out and do something different. So whether you change jobs, whether you move your house, whether you jack up your bills because your transmission blew, whatever it is, something is going to affect something. So,
and what's your overall success rate when you help members repair their credit ratings?
We have probably, I'm going to say, about 85 to 95%. I mean, almost always we're able to do things. So let's say there was an error on your credit report. Almost always, if we can prove that it's an error or prove that it's a compliance violation or it's something that should have been stat barred, it's going to get removed almost always. Occasionally you run into someone trying to cover their butt or something like that. Or, I mean, even occasionally you get the odd customer that lies to us and says, oh, yeah, it wasn't mine, and it turns out it was. So, I mean, obviously that ends up in the 5% that we can't help, let's just say. But almost always, even in those situations, we can still help people get their credit scores up. We can still improve people. So almost always we're successful. And the next question usually is, how long does it take? You're going to notice a significant difference. Anywhere from 30 to 90 days, you'll notice differences. And then once again, depending on how bad your credit was to begin with, you may notice different variances of improvement as well. So.
Well, I want to ask more about the banks and mortgage companies. I heard from a mortgage broker that with some recent rule changes to the industry, it's tougher to get a mortgage these days. How can you help with people getting their mortgages?
Well, we know the mortgage broker's job, and we know it well. We also know each and every bank's systems fairly well, and we know CMHC's policies. So we know what your file needs to look like in order to get your mortgage. So as I mentioned on, I don't know if it's another interview, but we handle a lot of files that get sent to us from mortgage brokers, and they say, we really want to help this guy get his mortgage. And what we can do is we can go through his score, we can go through the rating, find errors, find compliance violations, and hopefully get them all rectified and hand it right back to the mortgage broker and get the mortgage done. So, but I mean, the fact is, unless you know the guidelines of each and every bank, each and every lender, and CMHC and Genworth, if you know all those, we can pretty much get your file to look exactly how they want it to look.
So I know you're a members-only agency. Would all these services be included in your membership?
Absolutely. It's a one-stop shop. We want to make you a viable consumer. If it's help getting your mortgage, I should say that if you're working with mortgage brokers in certain firms, even though we may be at a member's limit or at a maximum limit for the month, a lot of times we'll still accept your file if it comes in through one of the mortgage brokers that we deal with. And we deal with a lot of the major players. So don't be afraid to call us and say, hey, I'm working with this company or that company. And as far as the banks go, we work with pretty much all the major banks in Canada, and we get referrals from them all the time. So don't be afraid to call us, because sometimes we get a file that's finished early and we can take on a new member. So like I said, give us a call if we could fit you, and we'll do our best.
Okay, well, Sheldon, so how does one get a premium membership with Canada Credit Fix? I was told that you're not accepting new members and you're currently full. How does that work?
Yeah, do the application online at our website, and where it says apply now, just go in there. If you are working with a mortgage broker, put in the comments that you're working with so-and-so from whatever company. And like I said, a lot of times we'll make exceptions, and a lot of times we get files done early or faster, which is always nice for the consumer, and we end up having availability. So we may be capped for the month, but like I said, maybe today it's booked, but tomorrow one finishes off early, I can move a file in, and we can manually walk in files. Same thing if it's an emergency. If you've been a victim of identity theft, don't worry about our cap. I'll find a way to get somebody on your file right away and at least stop the bleeding, so to speak.
So essentially, you release a limited amount of memberships monthly. Can anyone just sign up for Canada Credit Fix and become a member?
We take on people if we think that they're serious and they're legitimate. We don't like frivolous claims where people are just trying to get things removed from their credit. We like it that people take our claims here. So if we're handling a dispute, most of the collection agencies know that we're not handling a frivolous claim, that people have contracted us for a reason. So if you're serious and it's an important thing to get fixed on your credit, or it's holding you back from getting your mortgage, please call us. or give us an email, drop us a line, or do the application. And like I said, we have files that get finished early all the time. So like I said, we can always figure out if it's a really important file or an emergency, we'll make an exception.
Well, that's great. Well, Sheldon, thanks as always for basically joining us in an exclusive interview on all of these topics related to credit. It's always great to hear from you and the improvements you've made to for Canadians and their credit solutions. You're truly a pioneer, and we hope to hear from you again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for having me.
If you're looking for more information on Canada Credit Fix and their credit slab credit improvement system, please go to www.canadacreditfix.com, or you can give them a call toll free at 1-866-530-3646. As always, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again real soon.